Looks like we're live. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another recreational programming session with Mr. Zozin. Let's make a little bit of an announcement and officially start the stream. Hello everyone. Welcome. How are you guys doing today? I'm really glad to see you all today. Forgot to open my Discord, so we have to wait a little bit before we can make an announcement, an epic announcement. Right, just a second, right, because the Discord needs to recompute the layout and stuff like that. That is a very difficult task, as you can see, impossible computer science task. Let's do a red circle live on Twitch. And what are we doing today on Twitch at .television website? Today we are doing TypeScript and service workers. That's right. So today we are being web devs. I'm gonna give the link to where we're doing all of that, twitch.tv/Zodin, and I'm gonna ping everyone who's interested in being pinged. And there we go. The stream has officially started. So today I would like to take a look at an old project of mine, which is called emoteJAM. Right. So it's emoteJAM, and it's just a single, I would say, static website, right? So it is static because it doesn't really have any backend. It does everything on the front end. So it's static in that sense. For some reason, it doesn't really work. I don't really know why. I think it is broken. Yeah, I think it is literally broken. I just checked it before the stream and it was working, and maybe that's what we're going to be doing today, right? We're going to be fixing it today. That is bizarre, right? I literally checked it before the stream. So, right, so let me see, what does it say in console. Could not initialize WebGL. Oh, that is very interesting. So it's supposed to use open like WebGL. Okay, I literally disabled hardware acceleration just to check whether that potentially makes the Twitch go faster. Right. So let me actually go to settings. I hope I'm not going to expose anything sensitive, so I'm going to quickly go to my settings and I'm going to enable hardware acceleration. I didn't freaking expect that. Apparently, disabling hardware acceleration actually disables the, you know, everything. Oh boy. All right, so let's actually go to Zodin GitHub emoteJAM, right? So hopefully it already initialized WebGL, and this is how it looks like. So the point of this entire thing, right? So the point is this entire thing is to animate the emotes, right? So you have a static emote, something like that. So let's actually do something like this. And for instance, I can take kegW, right? I can drag and drop kegW. And as you can see in here, you have some sort of like different filters, right? So for example, hop. You can make it automatically hop, or you can make it automatically bounce, right? Or make a circle, make a slide and stuff like that. So do these kind of things, right? So by the way, you can find this thing by this link if you're interested, right? So I'm gonna copy paste it in the chat, and for people on YouTube, it is going to be in the description as usual, right? So and then you can render GIF. Right, you can turn this entire thing into a GIF. You can then download that GIF and you can do whatever you want with it. You can upload it to BTTV and stuff like that. Right, so yeah. So, and what's cool about this entire thing, it is completely serverless. And it is actually serverless in the sense that it doesn't have any backend, right? So it can work completely on your machine. It does all the processing on your machine, right? So the animations, WebGL and stuff like that. And it even renders GIF on your machine. So we're using gif.js, which is actually like generates GIF format byte by byte. Right, it doesn't use any internal like browser API or anything like that. It just generates it byte by byte, and it is completely client-side application. It is a completely client-side application. Right, and here's an interesting thing. It doesn't work when the internet doesn't work. So that's kind of the problem, right? Even though it's completely client-side, it can't work without the internet. But as far as I know, in today's modern web, it is allegedly not a problem because of so-called service workers. Have you guys heard about service workers? Have you guys heard of it? Right, so essentially, service workers are essentially act as proxy servers that sit between web applications, the browser, and the network when available. They are intended, among other things, to enable the creation of effective offline experiences, intercept network requests, and take appropriate actions based on whether the network is available, and update assets residing on the server. They will also allow access to push notification and background sync APIs. Right. So, and essentially they actually enable you to use your website when the internet is completely down. Right. So there are a couple of examples. We discussed that on our Discord server, by the way. So there was a discussion. The entire topic sort of like got born out of all discussion on Discord server, right? So for people who ask me how do I come up with the topics for my streams, I just like talk on the internet with different people on Discord server, maybe on social media. I get an idea, I put it to my to-do list, and eventually get to that idea. Right, so quite a lot of topics like actually emerged out of the Discord conversation that we do on our Discord server. So it's actually quite cool, right? So, and essentially one of the application that was that popped up during the conversation is Squoosh, right? So we can take a look at that application. So it's something for images. I forgot what it does actually, right? So what does it do? So it resizes the images, right? So it does something with the images. It doesn't really matter. So you basically drag and drop image there. It resizes or optimizes them or something like that. I don't really know what it does. We can try to actually do that. So let's actually take maybe gbait it, and I'm gonna just drag and drop this entire thing. And what it allows me to do, it just allows me to do some things. Right, that's pretty cool. So it doesn't really matter. So this thing works without the internet. Right before the stream, right after I announced that I'm going to be doing this stream, I just realized how the fuck I'm going to be testing this. I'm streaming from one PC that requires internet connection. If I need to make a website, VirtualBox, I don't have that many resources to have a virtual machine in Docker and stuff like that. Like, yikes. So, right. So DevTools, right. So there is something with DevTools that we could probably use. Right. So how can I simulate the lack of the network? So is this something in here? Right. So let's actually take a look at the application. Right, and you can make offline from DevTools. Okay, so how do I do that? So does anybody know? Or drop down no throttling on the network tab. Right. So no throttling. What? How is that? Oh, offline. So we're completely offline. Okay. So if I refresh this entire thing, it seems to be working. So we can try the same thing in here, right? So that's a really weird place to put such functionality in. Right. So offline, right? So we're completely offline. And I'm going to refresh this entire thing. And as you can see, it cannot work without any internet. And this one can work. Okay, so I learned something. I actually learned something. That's actually pretty cool. But you know how I want you to test that right before the stream? I want you to actually redirect it to some sort of like a non-existing proxy, right? Which also potentially may work. So we can actually take a look at that, right? So I'm gonna just do it like this. Right, thank you for letting me know about this offline feature. So my idea was to just start Chromium, right, with a proxy server, and just redirect that proxy to some local host to maybe 6969, right? So this is supposed to be like a SOX 5. It's not 6, it's 5, right? So this proxy does not exist on my machine, so hopefully that will create a situation which doesn't work. So I have to. It didn't work. So I suppose this is because I have some other tabs opened in here. So okay, so it's not going to work without completely restarting my my browser because I have some other things. All right, so the DevTools it is then, right? So we're going to be using DevTools. So DevTools are definitely better to test all of that stuff. Okay, so you forgot to take down your 6969 proxy server. I don't really have 6969 proxy server. Right. Okay, so I need to recover my knowledge on how to work with emoteJAM, right? So I still have a clone of this thing in here. Do I have some changes in here? I don't really have any particular changes. So there is a ripple effect. I don't remember if I actually merged it. So let me take the latest changes in here. Apparently I merged something, right? So origin master, there we go, and I think I can do that. So apparently some time ago I was doing some changes that I actually merged. So how are we supposed to use this shit? I don't remember. We're supposed to do npm install. I think I can just do that, and probably it's not needed because everything is already installed. Somebody asks, you wrote shader code too? Not entirely. Some of the shaders were contributed to me, but majority of the stuff, yes, a majority of the stuff I wrote shaders for, of course. So they're so-called filters, right? So they're not really called shaders, they're called filters. All right, and a filter is essentially like a structure. So there's some parameters in here, the duration of the animation, and two strings that we have in here is a vertex and fragment shader, and this is how you literally write them, right? So essentially here's the vertex shader, and that's literally the shader that you put in here, and the fragment shader. Majority of them I wrote. But some of them, of course, they were contributed by people, so I accepted them. So there's quite a few filters in here. So how you're supposed to actually constantly modify? So you're supposed to run the TypeScript compiler in a watch mode and edit files, and they will be automatically compiled into the JS. All right, so these are JS versions of this entire thing. So we're not using bundlers, we're not using any of that Zoomer shit. We're going really old school, right? So yeah. Which, I mean, it's not a particularly complicated application. We don't really need anything super complicated. That's why we're going old school. So somebody asks, why is duration string? I don't remember, right? So I don't remember. Maybe because it has some sort of a format or something like that. I don't remember, honestly. We'll see. All right, so let's go ahead and maybe start the TypeScript compiler. So emoteJAM. I'm gonna go to the README. Thank you so much, past me, for providing instructions on how to quickly set this thing up, because I usually quite often forget, right? So I quite often forget. So on top of that, we're supposed to like run a server. So Python 3m HTTP server 69 R69, right? So of course that's the only port that you need in your life. You don't need any other ports. In fact, you can actually close all of the other ports in your firewall. There we go. So we're running this entire thing locally. Speaking of, how can you run this service without internet? You just have a local copy. That's how. Right? That's how we do that. Very easy. Right. So yes. Okay, so we have a local copy. That's pretty cool. So I suppose now we need to go ahead and read, how do you do service workers? How do you do service workers? That's a very interesting question. Service workers concept and usage. A service worker is an event-driven worker. Okay, so it's a more specific kind of another concept, which is worker, right? So it's an event-driven worker. A worker interface to the web workers API represents a background task that can be created via script, which can send messages back to its creator. Wait a freaking second. Does JavaScript has threads? Does it have threads? Holy shit. Anyway, so we have some sort of a threads, apparently. We have some sort of a threads. And service workers API are just like kind of threads, and they can be communicated by sending some messages and stuff like that. Is that an actor model? Holy fucking shit! It's almost like Erlang. Did they build in Erlang into the browser? What the fuck? Sorry. So anyway, so every time I see you know, this idea, oh, we have a separate sort of thread and we're communicating through the messages, I have this like, you know, reaction. Is that just like Erlang? Holy shit. Because maybe when I was young, it was like a huge meme, right? So like 10 years ago, when I was 20 and was really into functional programming and all of this comp sawyery, actor models were like a very huge thing, and everyone was talking about actor models and how Erlang is the future of like scalable distributed computing, and everyone was trying to emulate Erlang in their own language and stuff like that. And it was just like, holy shit, you can send messages, this is like Erlang, this is like Erlang, and all of the comp sawyers were like, Pog, Erlang. But that was 10 years ago, so it's just like everybody forgot about all that. So so anyway, I think I'm just old. Anyways, so it's just like a different kind of workers. Service workers can't import JavaScript module dynamically, and import will throw if it is called in a service worker global scope, static import. So you can do imports in a browser these days? Listen, I'm a veteran web dev. Like literally, I was developing web applications unironically for Internet Explorer 6. Unironically. Yes, I am web dev, but I'm a veteran web dev. I didn't know that you can finally import things in the browser. I thought you need something like Browserify. Any epic boomers in the chat, who remembers Browserify, motherfucker? Who remembers this shit? Who remembers this shit? No, nobody remembers this shit. Okay, anyway. So... You used to deploy using FTP. Exactly. So syntax commonly used dynamic import as a function-like expression to allow loading an Emacs script module asynchronously and dynamically into potential non-module environment. Oh, you have a separation of module and non-module environment. Holy shit. Anyways. So what else do we have in here? Some import registration. A service worker is first registered using service worker container register. We're off to a great start, apparently. Okay. So you need to register that motherfucker. The register method of the service worker register interface creates or updates a service worker registration for a given script URL. You have to serve it by a URL. If successful, a service worker registration ties the provided script URL to a scope, which is subsequently used for navigation matching. You can call this method unconditionally from the controlled page. You don't need to check whether there is an active registration. Okay. There is a frequent confusion surrounding the meaning and use of scope, like anything in web, right? I really like how in web they introduce a new thing and there's always some sort of confusion associated with it immediately. It's like, of course there is some sort of confusion. Of course, it's web. Since a service worker can't have a scope broader than its own location, only use the scope option when you need a scope that is narrower than the default. Okay. So URL. Oh my god, are you serious, my friend? Like it needs a correct MIME type. Fuck. I'm using Python server. I'm using Python server. Why do you expect a correct MIME type from me? Like, why do they make everything so goddamn complicated? Like, you literally can't do web development without a web server these days. It's insane. It is insane, my friends. So that probably means that we need a better web server somehow. Oof. So as far as I know, Node has some sort of HTTP server or something like that. But maybe Python server can actually like create a correct MIME type. So for instance, like we have, yeah, we have this kind of thing, right? So can I just take a look at the network, right? So I'm gonna refresh the syntactic, and when I take a look at this, does it have a MIME type? The content. Okay, so it sets a content type application JavaScript automatically. So okay, Python server is capable of automatically detecting that. That's actually super cool. What the fuck? All right, I thought it's super dumb and just like doesn't do anything. Apparently, it's smart enough to recognize different types of files and stuff like that. Okay, so we can work with that. I'm actually super happy, chat. Okay, so we have to register some sort of thing in here, some sort of a thing. So can I go to Squoosh app? Is there any way to take a look at the registered service workers of a particular application? You know? God fucking damn it, mate. I need to open PCman FM. PCman. Okay, so now we're good to go. Application. Service workers. Holy shit, you just can. Apparently you just can. And here is the registered service worker. So they literally just create a service worker here in here, which is actually kind of cool. So you have assets. And minified. Okay. Fair enough. And this entire shit is minified. Okay. I wonder if there's like any other examples. but anyway. So let's go ahead and try to register something, chat. Right, so let's go ahead and try to register something. So let's see. Maybe when we are, so there is the index.js, right? So there's the index.js, but we are doing TypeScript, so we're supposed to be using index.ts. So here we go. Here is the index.ts. So window on load. So this is what we have. Okay, so what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to do service worker container. Service worker container. Would you look at that? Yo. And we can register. Can we register? I said register. And do you have a method? It doesn't even have a method for that. Register. Yeah, you can register, but it doesn't autocomplete that shit for me because fuck me apparently. And let's actually do service worker.js. Service worker.js. So which kind of means that we probably need to have something like service worker.ts. And what can we do in here? Let's actually put console log hello from service worker. Right, so this is like a waving stick man. So this is what we're doing here. Okay, so as far as I know, we have a watcher. So it doesn't have a register. Does not exist. Am I an idiot? Register. Okay. Property register does not exist on type new service worker container. Service worker container. Is there any examples on how to do that? Oh, okay. So you need to check whether you need... Why is chat like that? Hello, chat. Hello, everyone. So service worker in Navigator Right, so you have to take the navigator, service worker, register this thing, and it returns you a promise. It returns you a promise. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can work with that. Navigator, okay. Do you have a service worker? You do. Can you register for me? You can. Right, so let's do service worker JS. All right, so what do we have? So registration, okay, so that's the promise. And we may probably do some stuff in here. So what do usually people do in here? So then registration, in case of registration, service worker registration succeeded, you print the registration. In case of an error, you want to print that. Okay. So, and you also need to check that service workers are not supported. Maybe this is something that we also want to check in here. Yeah, why not? Well, let's go ahead and check that. So we want to support all the browsers, right? We do care about backward compatibility. We do care about that. So, and here we can do something like error, service workers are not supported in this browser. So we're gonna just log that, but we're not gonna register anything. We're just logging that, but not register anything. So registration. So console log registered a service worker, and we probably want to do a registration. So in case of an error, we're going to do something like this, and this is going to be console error could not register a service worker because of an error. There we go. So it is as simple as that. Do we have any compilation errors? Expression expected. So I'm not quite sure what the fuck do you want from me. So I suppose, oh yeah, so this is essentially, yeah, I see what's going on. I'm an idiot. This is supposed to be like two separate things, right? So then, so what do we have in here? So triple R, this is not something that you want to have. Maybe I can enable flight check mode. Yeah, so that seems to be good. That seems to be good. So let's go ahead and see if we can register a new thing in here. All right. So I'm going to open Le Console and let's go. Okay, so bad response, fetching the script could not register service worker, failed to register for scope with script service worker, a bad HTTP response code. Okay, that's very interesting. So I would expect, since we have like service worker TS, I would expect it to automatically create a service worker, and it in fact did. So I don't quite understand why you're telling me that oh, it's, I see what's going on, right? So I completely forgot that index.ts, it's actually inside of JS, right? So it has to be something like that, right? So it has to be something like that. You see, I'm doing WebDev, right? So this is basically WebDev, isn't it? I think it is, actually. Right, so I'm encountering some problems and stuff like that. We just registered a service worker. Hello from service worker. It works. This is our first service worker. Holy shit. And registration actually has some stuff in here. So just push manager and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. Thanks everyone for watching. So I suppose like this is not enough for for making it work without the HTTP server, right? So let's actually just try to do offline. All right, and if I try to refresh this entire thing, yeah, it says no internet. So we probably have to register something within the service worker, right? So we have to register something. The following code, if included in example HTML at the root site, would apply exactly the same page as an example above. Remember, the scope when included uses the page's location as its base. It probably doesn't really matter in our particular case. So there's something, yeah, so they provide the scope. I didn't think we need to care about the scope, right? I'm gonna just omit that. There's a freaking confusion surrounding the meaning. You already said that. Didn't you already said that there is a confusion about the scope? Like, okay. Specification. Okay. So you can also unregister. All right, so we did the registration. At this point, download, install, and activate. At this point, your service worker will observe the following life cycle. Observe, download, install, activate. The service worker is immediately downloaded when a user first accesses a server worker controlled site page. After that, it is updated when a navigation to an in-scope page occurs. An event is fired on the service worker and it hasn't been downloaded in the last 24 hours. Installation attempted when the downloaded file is found to be new, either different to an existing service worker, byte-wise compared, or first service worker encountered for the page side. So this is some sort of a technicalities of how the service worker is updated and stuff like that. I'm not sure if I'm really interested. You know what I'm interested in? What should I put into the service worker, right? It is cool and all, right? So you have some sort of a JavaScript, which is a service worker. You can update that JavaScript and the browser is gonna just like, you know, recache it and do different things. It is cool. It is pretty epic. But what exactly do I put into that goddamn service worker? What exactly do I put there? So that's a very interesting question. I have no idea. So we need to find an example. So service workers are also intended to be used for such things as background data synchronization, responding to resource requests from other origins, receiving centralized updates, to expensive to calculate data such as geolocation and gyroscope. So multiple pages can make use of one set of data, client-side compiling and dependency management, blah, blah, blah. That's pretty cool. And there is some, okay, so background synchronization. Start up a service worker even when no users are at this site, so caches can be updated. Reaction to push notification, entering geofence, I don't know how to properly pronounce that. That is pretty cool. So, yeah, so specification of the service workers, right, service workers nightly. So the only thing I'm interested in, what do I put into service working in here? So far I just put console log, but that is apparently not enough. And well, I mean, reading that would be a little bit of an overkill. So, all right. So maybe we can steal some ideas from squoosh, but it has a minified service worker, right? So which is not particularly useful in my opinion. So let's take a look at the network. Maybe we may want to take a look at the sources, right? There should be some sort of a service workers in here. So where is the service worker? Let's take a look at the network and the refresh. Oh yeah, I could have just done application service worker. I completely forgot how to do that. All right, so service worker JS, So okay, so there is a pretty print thingy. That's pretty cool. Okay, so there is a lot of stuff in here. Let me see. So you define some. It's probably, oh yeah, it's one of these like modules and shit. It's one of these modules. Ooh, this is interesting. Add event listener activate. Event listener message. Yo. That is rather interesting. Okay, so service worker events. Maybe that's what we have to do. Right, so maybe we have to take a look at what kind of events you can do. So using service workers, is that what we need? Because it might be one of these things that we already looked at. The premise of, so add event listener. Okay, oh, I remember installing shit. I do remember that. So you have self. Is this where it is? Like, is self like a valid word within that thing. Event wait until. So add resources to cache. Executable event. All right, so let's just give it a try. Let's just fuck around and find out, like, because this is how you learn programming. Remember how I said how you learn programming, right? You just fuck around and until you find out, right? So let's just see. So can we have self? Is that a thing that we can have? Apparently it is a thing. I thought, wait a second, JavaScript people, what's the difference between self and this? JavaScript people, are you okay? JavaScript people, did somebody hurt you? Just you can be honest with me, right? Like, did somebody hurt you? So what's wrong? You can tell me everything, right? Like, sure. Anyways, so let's go ahead and just like maybe add event listener. Holy shit, I was not doing JavaScript for 1 year, and you polluted this language with all sorts of shit, like service workers, self, and stuff like that. You're like children. You bring in all of these toys into your world. Like, why are you doing all of that? I don't freaking know. I don't freaking know. Anyways, so we have something like install, right? And in here we have an event. Okay. So there's an event called installation. An event called installation. So Pog, looks like we installed something. I have no idea what that means, but here is an object the browser sent us. There we go. So let me see. So this is the service worker, the service worker, the service worker, and let me go to network. We're not offline. No throttling is allowed. Let's take a look at the console. All right, so that's very interesting. So we didn't really get any installation or anything like that. We can take a look at maybe application, and here we have a service worker, a service worker, right? So, and it's still an old one. It didn't update it, right? So you want to tell me that it didn't update the service worker, the service worker. Okay, so here is an updated service worker. So maybe if I Control F. So where is the cache thingy, like disable cache? So the cache is disabled, but the cache is disabled. Right, so that's kind of weird. All right, so let me see. Let's try to maybe unregister this motherfucker. Right, so can we even delete it? So it shows like 2 errors or something. That's really weird. Okay, so maybe it's not that really interesting for us. So we just unregistered, and we're gonna refresh this entire thing. And it's registered again, and Pog, looks like we installed something. I have no idea what that means, but here is an object the browser sent us. Okay, so let's take a look. Install. All right. So type install. So nothing particularly interesting, but we can now sort of like catch different sort of events, right? We can catch different sort of events. And if I refresh the browser, right? So if I refresh the browser, it's not installed anymore. So install is when the service worker is first sort of installed, right? It's first installed. It would be kind of cool to have a list of all of the possible events. Here we add an install event listening to the service worker, hence self, and then chain an extendable event wait until method onto the event. This ensures that the service worker will not install until the code inside when until had successfully occurred. I have no idea what the fuck is going on with all of that, but okay. All right, custom responses to requests. So you can attach fetch event listener to the service worker, then call the respond with method on the event to hijack our HTTP responses and update them with your own content. Oh, is that epic? Is that epic? So we can start by responding with the response whose URL matches that of the network request in each. This is probably what we want, chat. Holy shit. Yo. So, but is it gonna occur on when you call like fetch, or is it gonna occur on any request made by the browser? Even if I just click in here and press enter, does that count as the fetch? Does that count as the fetch? Probably. I don't freaking know. So yeah, and this is how I suppose you interject. So yes, it does. People say that fetch is any request made by the browser. That is actually pretty cool. Okay. All right. So that's added complexity, and I personally don't like added complexity. In fact, I absolutely hate this entire idea and this entire web and stuff like that. The only reason why I do that is because I want my web application to work offline. If I had an option to like make it work offline without doing all of this crazy bullshit, which it is, I'm calling it for what it is, it's fucking crazy bullshit, I would happily pick that, right? So yeah. Just saying, I think I need to state that up front, right? So I'm doing that not because I think it's cool or because I enjoy it, but because I have no choice, right? So like anything in web, by the way, like nobody does anything in web because it's cool, but because we have no choice. Like literally, that's literally the only reason we use web. Not because we like it, but because we have no choice. And let me tell you, if you say that you like it, I have bad news for you. Have you heard about capital of Sweden? Yes, you have a Stockholm syndrome, I'm sorry. So anyway. Let's see. So we need to add a listener. Self-add event listener. So fetch. Let's do fetch event. Console log. Pog. The user made a request. Here it is, and we're gonna do event. I wonder if it's also going to contain all of the cookies. Probably. You can probably do man in the middle. You can probably do man in the middle. So let's actually try to refresh all of that, and if I refresh this entire thing, as you can see, it probably doesn't do shit because the service to worker is an old one. Yes, it's an old one. I wonder if I can just do that. So let's actually, oh, you can update it. You can just update it. So I should have actually clicked update. I didn't notice that. All right. So what do we have in here? Registered a service worker. Pog looks like okay. So that's fine. All right. So it keeps. Well, I mean, it's from the client. It's sort of from the client. So that looks fine, but honestly, we don't really even do any things in here. So I keep refreshing this entire thing, but it doesn't really say that it can't like caught fetch, right? It doesn't really say that it caught fetch, which is a little bit sus in my opinion. I don't really know why it doesn't tell me that. Right, so it didn't. catch the fetch. And what's funny is that we don't really do fetch that often, actually at all. I don't think we do fetch at all. But yeah. So what if I simply make the network offline? I don't think it's going to do anything, right? I don't think it's going to do anything. So I'm going to just refresh this entire thing, and yeah, as you can see, it didn't really do anything, but non.js files deprecated or something like that. So that wasn't doing it. That wasn't doing it. So it's not how you do that. Okay, so we probably have to continue reading. Probably have to continue reading this madness. So using registers, okay. So you probably have to do like event respond with, right? So event respond with, but we never actually got an opportunity to catch that. Cache first, cache first. So matches the particular request. Caches. So there is an object called caches. And then you can, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Oh, so you can basically forward this entire thing. Recurring failed requests. This thing is great when there is a match in a service worker cache, but what about cases when there isn't a match? If we didn't provide any kind of failure handling, our promise would resolve with undefined and we wouldn't get anything returned. After testing, the response from the cache will be... So there is some sort of object called caches, right? And it feels like it's built in because, as you can see, we didn't really create it anywhere. Right, so let me take a look. Cache. Yeah, okay, so it is a thing. And it's a cache storage. So storage for cache objects. And, all right, so you can match a certain request info. Ooh, okay, so that's very interesting. So this is literally the stuff that you put into the fetch, right? So if you take a look at fetch, function, it accepts request info and gives you promise response, and apparently there is a global object caches. Right, global object caches that has a method match that accepts the same request info that you put into the fetch. Right, and then it responds with a response which is also a result of the fetch. So it's like they match together, right? So they match together, so you can literally. Okay, I can see how you can use them together. That's actually pretty cool. So there's additional things that you can have in here. So like a cache query options. So yes. Okay, so that's cool. And by the way, when I say it's cool, it doesn't mean that I think this entire thing is cool and I'm satisfied with the web. When I say it's cool, I mean like, okay, right? So, okay, I acknowledge that. It's a sign of acknowledgement, not the sign of encouragement. I do not encourage this crazy motherfucking shit, okay? Right? This is not an encouragement, it's acknowledgement. Okay, I acknowledge that you can do things like that, all right? So don't... Disclaimer, yeah, exactly, disclaimer. All right, so event respond with. So essentially we're trying to get something from the cache. We're trying to take the event request from the cache. If we found it, we do that. Otherwise, we do the fetch. Right, so we do the fetch. Okay. So, but the problem is that we never managed to trigger the fetch. Right. So we never managed to trigger the fetch. It's cool that I can... It's okay. It's interesting that I can cache that, right? So, but we never actually triggered the fetch. Shut up, everyone. So, I think first we need to trigger the fetch, right? So first we need to trigger the fetch. God damn it. So I said it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement. I just acknowledge this thing. So make some JS call fetch, but Isn't that something that I asked earlier? Isn't that something that I asked earlier? I asked, what is considered fetch? Is fetch considered the JavaScript call to fetch? Or is it considered any request made by the browser, even if I just like request the image? And everyone said that yes, it's any request. So does that mean the chat debated me? Did you just lie to me? You just lie to me. We can try to do that, right? So let's actually try to fetch something. So what can we fetch, right? So is there something we can fetch in here? Well, I mean, we can try to fetch the index.html, right? So if I do index.html, just like fetch this shit. And nothing happened, apparently. Nothing happened. Even though in the worker, so it's still pending though, right? It's still pending. So does it mean, so if I save that promise somewhere, right? It's already taken, okay. All right, your mom. It's fulfilled, and I suppose, right, so here's the response. We can take a look at the body. It's a readable stream, and within the readable stream, I mean, like, okay, so it's probably HTML, whatever. And let me see. So there should be some sort of a console. Yeah, so there was no logs or anything in service worker. So yeah, fetch didn't do anything, didn't log anything. So yeah, we never managed to trigger it even after doing a fetch. Even after doing a fetch. So yep, so service worker did not catch that. It didn't catch that. So you know what I'm thinking? You know what I'm thinking? Maybe it has something to do with this goddamn scope. Maybe it has to do something with that goddamn scope that we ignored and everyone was actually warning us about. So maybe that's something we have to do. So register script. So constrain register. So what about the scope? Scope, a string representing a URL that defines a service worker registration scope. That is what ranges of URLs a server worker can control. This is usually a relative URL. It is relative to the base URL of the application. By default, the scope value of the service worker is set to the directory where the service worker script is located. It's located in JS. It's located in JS. We put it in JS. So does that mean that the scope of this goddamn thingy is here? Why did they introduce the scope? Why they introduce the scope? Why the fuck do you... Well, probably some sort of like a security reason. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm going to argue with that. So, okay, the example described here show to get a better understanding of how service worker scope applies to pages. The following example uses the default value scope. By omitting it, the service is located, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the following code at the root of the site would apply exactly. Okay, so if the scope were included at the page with the JavaScript file rendered, the service worker would only apply to the resources at product. I see. So let's go ahead and maybe provide a scope. Let's provide a scope. So I think that's kind of important. So this is scope. So this is the scope, and in the scope, do I have to do dot slash, or like I honestly want to do just slash, indicating that it has to be you know, at the root of the entire thing, right? So I'm not really sure about the dot slash. So there is a frequent confusion surrounding the meaning of the user scope. Since the service worker can't have a scope broader than its own location, only use the scope option when you need a scope that is narrower than the default. So we need to do the narrower scope. The narrow. I cannot make it broader, right? So I can only make it broader if I put the service worker JavaScript at the root of this entire thing. Seriously? That is maybe dot slash cause it's relative. We'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna put it like that. So I'm gonna just do it slash, and let's go to the applications and unregister this mother flipper. So everything compiles, which is nice. Right, so there's a couple of errors in here. Doesn't really matter, I don't care. So let's refresh this entire thing. Did it work? Okay, so the path provided scope is not under the max scope allowed. Adjust the scope, move the service worker script, or use the service. Call it. Freaking called it. Right, I'm developing an intuition towards this web chat technologies. Like I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel it. Maybe it's just a pain in my ass, but I feel like it's web. Sometimes it's hard to it's kind of difficult to distinguish whether it's just pain in my ass or just web. Anyway, so so essentially what we need to do, maybe we can just move this entire thing to the root, but how can we configure TS? Why do I have this shit here? That's my face when I need to do web, literally. Okay, so this is like a result of some tests. Why do you keep opening it? Emacs. Shut the fuck up, Emacs. So there's something about JS. Yeah, so essentially you provide the output directory and the, like, here's the root directory and here is the output directory. So I want to put everything into the JS. Right, so I want to put everything into the JS, but at the same time, the service workers need to be at the root. They need to be at the root. And which makes me hella sad. One of the things I can do, of course, I can just take the service worker and put it in here. Right, I'm gonna just copy paste this entire thing. That's totally fine. Right, so and then I just say, okay, so we'll just put it in here. I can do things like that, right? I can do things like that. That's totally fine. Right, so we need to take a look at the application. So that seems to be fine. And I'm going to refresh this entire thing. And that registered the serviced worker, right? The serviced worker. And where is it located? I'm pretty sure it's located at, yeah, as you can see, well, I mean, you probably couldn't see it, but it's located at the root. So yeah, we installed something, we registered the service worker, we registered the serviced worker. And if now I just refresh this into, oh, I figured that shit out all by myself without using any chat GPT or any of that Zoomer shit. Just logic, facts in logic, and reading documentation. Easy peasy lemon squeezing. Okay, so yeah, essentially it's funny that it works, even though I never really forwarded anywhere, right? So I never really forwarded that thing anywhere. So it's kind of funny, actually. So it just worked. Okay, so let's take a look at the service worker. So one of the things we need to do, we need to somehow reconfigure this thing to just, you know, treat that specific service worker differently. I'm not really sure how to do that, right? Because we set the root to TS. It's kind of painful, not gonna lie. So I think MovieMax suggested in the chat to use some sort of symlinks. That's not a bad idea, but how is it going to work in on Windows, right? So yeah, we'll have to think about that. I'm already streaming for 1 hour, right? So I would like to make a small break and refill my cup of tea. And after the break, we're gonna continue doing this stuff, right? We're gonna continue doing this stuff. Anyways, so where is the service worker? Okay, so let's go and find the way we handle this thing. I think in a navigator, right? In a navigator, if I do service worker, I can do the following thing: navigator online, right? So there is this thing, which is rather an interesting thing, isn't it? Which is rather an interesting thing. I wonder if we can do something like, if not offline, caches match. What do you guys think? Is that a feasible solution? We can actually try to steal some code from squoosh thingy. Return from a callback. Is that something bad? I don't think it's something bad. So where is my description? So here's the description. I want to take a look at squoosh one more time. So event respond with. Okay, so that's probably what we have to do. Event respond. It's somebody suggested in the chat. Yeah. So I see you, because this is what I remember from the examples as well. This is what I remember from the examples as well. Applicazione service worker. It is pretty printed. We want to find. Okay, so it's not pretty printed. Pretty printed, please. Thank you very much. Do you have some shit like fetch? Aha, got you. What do we have? Why did you? I just want to see the full thing. Okay, so you do request URL, location, origin. So it does all of these things. And it does respond, right? So it does respond. So it also sometimes returns things from a cache if it matches something. Otherwise, a respond redirect. Does it check for? Yeah. So location, origin. Doesn't really check for online or anything. So yeah. So I suppose it just like does different things for different URLs for different situations, even for different methods, as you can see. Even for different methods, it does some sort of like a exclusion for an editor, right? So if something not a cool editor is that, otherwise respond with redirect to that. So some of the features probably could be disabled, right? So you can, yeah, you can do quite a little bit of a logic in here. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, so let me see. Respond with, does it have to be with a function, right? Oh, it's not really a function, right? So it's this stuff. Event respond with just that. I would like to, like, I can't really do that stuff easily. I can't even jump there. So add event listener. One of the listeners we have is an event listener. So if we take a look at the event listener, so different events, nothing particularly special. So it's not really typed properly in any way, unfortunately. So fetch event request. All right, index.ts. Right, so let's enable that. And you know what, for the time of development, I think I'm going to make a symlink a symlink to JS. So essentially, I want to do I want to do s service service worker JS service worker JS. So it's the other way around. I can never remember in which order you have to provide those things. All right, so there we go. So we can do like this. So for the sake of development, I think I'm gonna do it like that because I don't want to mess with TypeScript as of right now. All right, so we'll get something. So let's take a look at the console. All right, so we registered some workers and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So we can take a look at the application. We can take a look at the service worker. So we do have all of the necessary things in here. That is very cool. That is very epic. You know what? It would be kind of nice to also log something. Right. We are offline serving request from the cache. We are online. We are online. Online. Forwarding the request. I mean, it's a compiled language, right? It's a compiled language. It's going to tell me that something is wrong in here. Don't worry about it, chat. Don't even worry about it. To be fair, it's already telling me that something is wrong. Does not exist in the event. Yeah, that's actually pretty bad. It's actually pretty bad that I can't just use respond with. Yeah, that's kind of sad. So because a TypeScript apparently doesn't have enough information about that. Right, so we can try to maybe search for different things in here. What if I search for respond with? Right, so who has a respond with? So this is a fetch event. Right, extendable. So maybe we need to cast this entire thing to fetch event. So maybe this is one of the things we can do. So let's say fetch event. All right. So, and now this thing should work, but it didn't actually. All right. So, oh yeah, you need to like include web workers or something like that. Can I just say import web workers? Right, so is this how you do that? I don't remember. Right. How do you import things? How do you import things? Yeah, this is not how we import things. So I forgot how to import things. So TypeScript import web workers. Using dependencies on top of dependencies, not really. Right, so this is some of the like existing modules in there. I just forgot how to import things in TypeScript. So import, import everything from, okay. So can I import fetch event from web worker? So we do have web worker in here, right? Is that enough? Almost. I cannot use imports, export, or module augmentation when module is none. Yeah, that's kind of weird because the only thing I need is the typings, right? The typings. So I probably have to do something like this. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. So essentially it thinks that I want to create like modules and stuff like that, but I only care about the these things, the typings. So I want to only import typings. I think you want to, oh yeah, so it's probably tsconfig. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. So it is a thing. So it's probably, I want to add one of this thing, web worker. Thank you so much. So I think you want to change in tsconfig. Yeah, you're right. So let me see. I probably have to, of course, get to read of this entire thing. I don't think it's particularly needed. Fuck me, holy shit. Okay. That was overloading something overloading. Oof. Argument of fetch is not assignable to parameter dedicated worker global scope event map. Okay, so Jesus. Is that what you want? All right, still that didn't really work. Yeah. So fetch. Yeah, fetch event apparently is not assignable in here. Okay, so it doesn't really prevent us from compiling this entire thing, right? So because the end result is still going to be generated, because that's kind of the point of TypeScript. Even if something doesn't compile, it doesn't mean that you are not going to be able to, you know, generate it. So you can cast it inside the listener scope. That's also a good idea. I think that's one of the things I can do, right? So just do as. So let's actually see. Can I do something like event? Can I shadow things? Is shadowing names okay in JavaScript? Is shadowing things okay? It's not particularly okay. All right. We can maybe even do something like E, because some languages are okay with shadowing. All right, they are in fact okay. So argument promise undefined is not assignable to parameter. Ooh, this one is actually pretty cool. Okay, so this thing may return undefined. And this is something that actually TypeScript helped us with, right? Because respond with accepts promise response, right? As you can see, it accepts promise response. But this thing, like cache match, returns promise response undefined in case of something is not available in there. So what we probably have to do, something like then. Right, so this is going to be response. And I suppose, yeah, we can actually probably want to do something like this. Response undefined, and this is something like that. So if response undefined, is that how you check for undefined? Right, so we can return something else. Right, we can try to return something else. TypeScript stops the compilation when errors, or it creates the JavaScript file despite errors. The second one, it creates JavaScript despite the errors because it wants you to be able to transition to TypeScript smoothly. Right, so essentially, you can't just take easily your JavaScript mess and start using TypeScript, because it's not going to work, because it's going to be a lot of errors. So because of that, it just allows you to generate with errors, right? So just because something doesn't match the types at compile time, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work at runtime. It may work at runtime because it's a dynamic language. I guess that's the idea. I guess that's the idea. So yes. So if it's undefined, we have to, I suppose, return something else, but I'm not really sure what we have to return. So can I fabricate the response? Right, can I fabricate the response? Right, otherwise we just return response. Though we can do something like not equal and instantly return that. Otherwise, new response. Interestingly, maybe it is possible to construct a response. Can I just construct a response? Right, so let me see. So JavaScript new response. New response. Is that a thing that you can just do? Though you can try to serve something. So a boolean indicating. Okay, so there is some sort of a constructor. Body. Oh, you can just create a body. Defining body of the response. This can be null. And options, what are the options? You can return a status, okay? So we can maybe do something like this. New response, and then status. So this is going to be like the text. 404, right? So this is the status. Headers, do we want to have any headers? So status text, yeah, that's fine. So my blob is a body. But I suppose I should be able to just put the text in there, right? So I don't see a constructor though. So maybe this is the body. So this is just an interface. Oh, here it is. So body init. So what is body init? It's a blob, buffered form data, and it's okay. So it could be a string. So the body could be a string. So that's totally fine. I'm happy with that. So yeah, well, we just want to have something, right? So we just want to have something. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Okay, then. So expected something else. I don't quite understand what it expects from me. Maybe I forgot a semicolon here. So 17. Yeah. Is that is weird, mein Freund. Like, what do you want from me? So I thought then accepts what? Okay, so it accepts function and everything. What did I miss exactly? What did I miss? I don't quite understand. So it's not equal to undef. So what? One more. Oh yeah, okay, I see. All right. Holy shit, it fully compiles. Look at that. It fully compiles. So isn't that poggers? So I wonder if it's going to work. So Alrighty, so let me see. So we need to go to the application and unregister this entire thing. And let's just refresh. It is registered yet again. So Pog looks like blah blah blah. And yeah, we are online forwarding the request. We are online and we're forwarding the request, which is kind of cool. Okay, so let's go to network and we're going to go offline. So I'm going to try to refresh this entire thing. So let's do console. It worked. Let me tell you, it actually worked. I mean, it actually worked. So we just didn't have anything in the cache. But it worked. And I suppose the reason why we didn't have anything in the cache, well, we disabled the cache. Look at that. I thought, right, so I thought I said disable the cache, but I mean, it didn't, yeah, so it didn't work. One of the things we can do in here, we can literally do something like, I don't know, so you are offline, lol, forehead. And in here we can just return something like this. Yeah. So, and let's actually go to no throttling. Right, so we save this entire thing. And what else do we need? We need to go to application and unregister this entire thing. Let's refresh. Everything seems to be working. Everything seems to be twerking. Offline, and we're gonna refresh this entire thing. It's not even HTML. God damn. Well, I mean, okay, that was close. So I suppose we need to set the content type or MIME or something like that, right? We can actually look up what kind of options can we have in there. So status, you can only have status. You can have response type, basic. Yeah, you have to do that through headers. Yeah, you have to do that through headers. And it's an interface, and I have to append them like that. All right, let's see. Okay, so I can have headers, which is const new headers, right? So this is going to be like that. And one of the headers I want to add in here is content type. So That one is going to be text HTML. Headers. Headers. Is that how we do that? Is that how I do that? I think that's how we do that. So, yeah. Does it compile? It seems to be compiling. Seems to be compiling. Applicazione, unregister. Where's the network? Refresh, and so it registered everything, right? So it registered everything. Go to offline, refresh. You're offline, lol, forehead. You are offline. So it's okay, that's actually pretty cool. So you can have like an entire logic in here that renders HTML templates. I mean, how is that different from just responding from the server, but locally on your computer, right? So we're basically writing like a backend, but inside of the browser, right? So this is the backend inside of the browser. So the problem here is that the cache didn't freaking work. So why the cache didn't work? We explicitly disabled the cache, right? So if we go to the network, yeah, we enabled the cache. We enabled the cache. So why it didn't work? So maybe we have to explicitly put stuff into the cache. I kind of remember that some of the examples put stuff into the cache. Write the cache to manually. Yeah, so maybe one of the things we have to do. So we are online. Let's take a look at the caches thingy. It's a cache storage. Match. Open. Right, so you can't really put anything in here. So you can delete. You can check whether something is within the cache. So then you can... Right, so you have keys, you can match, you can open. So, but you can't really put anything in there. You can open the cache. Okay, so you can open the cache to write something in there. So this is very interesting. So somebody actually said very interesting thing. Okay, so you can open it, and within the cache, you can edit. And you can add. You add the request info though. Provides a storage mechanism for request response object pairs that are cached, for example, as part of the service worker lifecycle. Know that the cache interface is exposed to Windows scope as well as workers. You don't have to use it in conjunction with service worker, even though it is defined as a service worker. All right, so it is. It's kind of strange that you have to add request info but not response info. So okay, so here's the put. Okay. It's funny that I have to do that explicitly. All right, it's funny that I have to do that explicitly, but it's fine. So let me see. We can do something like then, and here we have a response. Right. So here is the response. Then, what we want to do? We want to open cache. So we definitely probably want to use some like a sync await thing, but I'm too old-fashioned to do that. I'm sorry, right? So let's open the cache. Why does it? And this is like, why do you have to provide the name? Wait a second. Do you have like separate caches? Like, what is the name? What's up with the name? I don't understand. Cache storage. I need more information. So there was an example. So caches. Open version 2. Okay. So fetch, respond with cache first. If you have that, return that. Fetch request. Put. This is actually a little bit better. So I suppose this is your sort of like local caches, right? So you have a cache of version 1, and then when you upgrade your application, you're probably going to use a different name for the cache. So it's basic. Okay. I see what's going on here. I see what's going on in here. I see what's going on in here. Actually, very cool. Actually, very cool. Okay. Well, and by cool, I just acknowledge, okay, you can do that. I do not encourage any of this shit. Right, so we have the cache, right? So we just open it. So this is the cache. Yeah, this is not particularly convenient, right? So this is not particularly convenient. What we want to probably do, we want to have like a function, right? So we probably want to have like a function, but it's a sync function, right? So and what we want to do in here is essentially just a response, and we await for that response in here. We just await for that response. Then we take the cache. Cache is open version 1. We also await for this entire thing. Right, we also await. And now, right, so there's that. So this is the function, but we also have to kind of call it. Right, so can we do cache put? And what we do, we put event request and a response. We'll put event request response. So this entire thing, it checks within the cache. So they actually organize this entire thing a little bit better. I kind of like how they organize this entire stuff. I do kind of like it, but maybe that's fine. All right, so does it compile? It doesn't really compile. So do I have to do it like that? I can't really do it like that. So what they do, so oh yeah, this entire thing is supposed to return, yeah, we're supposed to return response. I see what's going on. Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. Cool. Supposed to return a response. So is it too much that I'm like, you know, checking, like constantly adding that to the cache, even though it's not particularly, it's fine. It's probably fine. All right, so let's give it a try. I think we're ready to finally give it a try. So no throttling, the application unregister. All right, so let's refresh. So here's the emoteJAM, everything is registered. So here we have this thing. I'm gonna refresh this entire thing. And so Node.js, I don't know what the fuck is that. So the fetch event, the fetch event for resulted in a network error. A respond whose body is locked cannot be respond to request. I probably fucked something up. I can see what's going on. So something is locked in here. Okay, so let's maybe take the code that they had in here. So I think it's a pretty good code. All right, so put in cache and then cache first and so on and so forth. Need to clone it like an example. Do they clone it? I didn't see the cloning though. Okay, so cache it first. Yeah. Oh, okay, I see. I didn't notice the clone. Okay, that makes sense. So when they put it, you just clone it. All right, that also makes sense, I suppose. That also makes sense. So now I'm gonna unregister this entire thing. Let's refresh. Everything seems good. Everything seems fine. And now we're gonna disable the network. We're gonna go to console. First try, mother flippers. First try, absolutely fucking epic. So it works offline. It just works offline. We can even like go ahead and render this entire thing. All right, so I'm rendering. Oh fuck. So uncaught syntax error in gif worker. The fuck? I see. This is interesting because this, yes, okay, that's very funny. I know what the fuck is going on. Okay, so gif workers are loaded. They are loaded dynamically by gif.js, right? So gif worker, yeah, there we go. So they refer to this thing via the string literal. They load it dynamically. So they never had an opportunity to be cached. That is very fascinating. So I don't think we can solve that. I don't think we can solve that without modifying the GIF. Right, so the gif.js needs to be modified to solve that, right? So it always need to, you know, cache it somehow. We can put some sort of a hack. Essentially, when index.js is loaded, just always load gif worker.js to just put it in a cache. We can put this kind of hack, but I mean, apart from that, we can only try to modify how gif works. Manu fetch them, classic WebDev hack, yeah, exactly. But essentially, let me actually go back to the network, right? So let's make it online, right? We're gonna refresh this entire thing. Now I'm gonna try to render, right? So we are rendering everything. There's no errors, everything's fine. I suppose we cached the entire thing. Now we can go offline. We're going offline. We're refreshing this entire thing, right? So the console says we are offline. That's pretty cool. And now if I try to render this entire thing, it is rendering. So everything works fine. Okay, so we can just give it a try. We can just try to do that. So, yeah. Isn't there some sort of a preload in HTML? We're not, as already said, you probably wasn't listening correctly, we're not loading this thing directly. It is loaded dynamically by gif.js, not from HTML. Not from HTML. So, let me see what we can do. We can just fetch gif.js, gif.worker.js, like this. That's it. That's actually kind of funny. And now I wonder, how can I clean up the cache? I probably can just take the storage, cache storage. Oh, I can, I can see all of the cached shit in here. What the fuck? Can I clean it up? Okay, I can delete it. All right. So, yes. It's the network. Yeah, application. What I want to do, I want to nuke the service worker. All right, and essentially, I want to refresh this entire thing. Okay, so there is no internet, but this is because we are offline. We are offline now, and the GIF worker was fetched. The GIF worker was fetched. We can take a look at the cache storage. We don't really have, I don't see the cache storage. Where's the cache storage? Here it is. Do we have, we already have GIF worker, even though we never directly really used it. So now I'm going to disable the network. I'm going to go offline. I'm going offline. So we're offline. I'm refreshing this entire thing. It refreshed successfully. It refreshed absolutely successfully. And now I can try to render it. And is it rendering? I think it is rendering. I didn't see. Yeah, it is rendering. So it's successfully rendered. So we basically prefetched this entire thing, effectively putting it into the cache. And now this entire thing works completely offline. We achieved the epic victory royale. Right, so we can do something like then. and then we can say console log prefetched gif.worker.js, like so. Okay, now I know how this entire thing works. It's a bit convoluted, right? It's a bit convoluted for what I wanted, right? So yeah, if you take a look at the service worker, so you have to register this thing, you have to handle these events and stuff like that. And it's surprising that you have to manipulate the cache yourself. For some reason, I thought when I'm basically addressing the caches object, right? So cache, global caches object, I thought that this is the cache of the browser. You know what I'm talking about? Like the browser has its own cache, right? The browser has its own cache. So I thought every time I query something, it puts it in a cache. I didn't know that in case of the service worker, I have to manipulate the cache manually. It's kind of funny how a lot of the browser functionality gets moved on the shoulders of the front-end devs. I have a strange feeling that in 10 years, the web, like front-end developers, would have to implement the entire browser in JavaScript. So essentially, the browser is going to become so lightweight, it's going to be just a downloader of programs, and the websites will ship their version of the browser written entirely in JavaScript, and whatever is called browser is going to just like execute it. Right. You know what I'm talking about? Because like this is the functionality of the browser that I would expect, right? So the browser is supposed to do this cache logic, but now I'm the one who's doing that cache logic. So that was moved on me, right? So the more and more things that browsers were doing themselves are moving to the front end. So what's the end goal? What's the end game of this process? The end game is that the browsers are going to be just package managers, just downloaders of other browsers. Right. So I guess maybe that's the end goal, right? So because the only reason people use web is because of its distribution abilities. Right. Nobody uses web because JavaScript is somehow such a cool language that everybody loves. No. Everybody loves JavaScript because web has great distribution ability, not the other way around. Right. So you can replace JavaScript with any language and it doesn't change the situation. We don't use web for JavaScript. Nobody uses web for JavaScript. If you do, again, the capital of Sweden. So we used web for its great distribution abilities. And I suppose the end game is to just strip off this entire stuff down to just the distribution abilities. I think that's what it is. I think that's the end game. Which is not that bad of a bad game, end game. The only bad thing about it is that like only a few big corporations can be in control of all of the standards for all of that, which is kind of like dangerous for the entire ecosystem, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, that was an interesting stream. All right, it was surprisingly interesting stream. So I intentionally didn't read anything about service workers. Well, I mean, I kind of knew that they're basically proxies that run on your browser, but that's about it. So I just wanted to see how much time will it take for me to, understand how to use this entire API. And I suppose if you just approach it slowly and logically, right, slowly gathering all the necessary information, you can get the gist of this entire thing. You can understand it. Right, that's pretty cool. I guess that's it for today. Thanks everyone who's watching me right now. I really appreciate that. Have a good one, and I see you all on the next recreation programming session with Mr. Azozin. I love you all. Mwah. Mwah.